So, you all two ready?
Ready?
Ready? City Mayor?
Yes.
Commissioner Hill?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Murray? I call this workshop of the City Commission of the City of Pahokee to order at 6:04 p.m. Could we please stand for the invocation given by Commissioner Vice Mayor Mervin, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance?
Let us pray. Father God, in the name of Jesus, God, we want to thank you and praise you, God, for bringing us out one more time. Father God, as we gather together, God, to discuss the city, the business of the city, oh God, we ask you, oh God, just let us give us direction, oh God, direction to go in, oh God, because without you, God, we can do nothing. Father, we ask you to bless this meeting as we go forth. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mayor Babb,
Present.
Commissioner Everett, Commissioner Hill,
Present.
Vice Mayor Mervin,
Present.
Commissioner Walker, City Manager,
Here.
City Attorney, Lieutenant Piccolo, City Clerk, present.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you, Commissioners, and thank you, staff, for being here. This workshop of the City Commission of the City of Pahokee is being held to discuss the proposed fiscal budget 2018-19. And at this time, I will turn this portion over to our City Manager and our Finance Director to lead us in the discussion of the proposed budget.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, Commission, thanks for coming out tonight. This is our first workshop, one of two that we'll have on the 2018-2019 budget. We have had a good year here in the City of Pahokee. We've been able to, one, not increase any of our debt, while also ensuring that we have been good stewards of the city's dollars, of the public dollars here in the City of Pahokee, as well as provide those critical services that are needed for the City of Pahokee and our community residents here. We have tried our best to ensure that this budget represents what we project, and again, I want to emphasize the word project, where we will be throughout the 2018-2019 fiscal year. Of course, there's always changes to the budget based on amendment changes. If we get additional dollars from Tallahassee, of course, you won't see that until the latter part of the 19 fiscal year. And if there are interdepartmental changes based on services, emergencies, etc., those things will make this budget change throughout the year. Didn't see a lot of that in 2017 and 2018. We did see a lot of changes for amendments, but that was due to all of the money that we had brought in from Tallahassee. And so when that occurs, of course, we have to do an amendment change to address or to recognize those incoming funds. They're not operation dollars, they're project funded dollars. And so we have to represent that for our auditors' perspective. In addition to that, we're working on our conversation with PBSO for the 2018-2019 contract. They offered a 3% increase. The city rejected that 3% increase. They countered with a 2% increase, and we're just mulling that over. So that hasn't been calculated into here yet. I think that's about a $10,000 increase in their contract, their bottom line contract for 2018-2019. So we're still having discussions with them about their offer. In addition to that, we have some other savings that are coming into play for 2018-2019. I don't want to discuss those reductions or savings as of yet because I haven't made a decision on which carrier that I will go with, but it's a significant change in our budget for 2018-2019, and it will be very helpful once you see what that savings is. But I want to be very cautious about that. It will be a savings. I've already seen it, but I want to ensure that we get the best services from the best vendor before I present it to the commission for approval at a regular commission meeting. But it's been, it will help us, significantly in some areas. More likely in savings or as far as the reserves is concerned. Any questions about reserves as far as how much we expect to put back into reserves? We're looking we'll probably be up at about $40,000 at the end of the fiscal year. We also are looking at doing some investments in some of the remaining funds at the end of the year, because we realized that if we are able to take some of those ending funds and put them into some investments, we can get a rate of return that's higher than we typically see than it just sitting in the bank. So keep that in mind as well, but we won't have those numbers until the end of the fiscal year, which is September 31st, which is after this new budget will be passed out. Any questions before we get into the budget tonight? Mayor, commissioners? Okay. Tonight, we're probably we presented to you about 60% of the departments. We typically, what we try to do is not try to do everything in one budget workshop. We try to go through most of it in the first night, and then come back and wrap it up in the second workshop. And then from there, of course, you pass the regular budget at the next commission meeting following that. What I want to do is first start, of course, with the city commission's budget. And what we want to do is identify those items that are changing and the others that are remaining the same. If there are some changes that you want to possibly see that we can, accommodate or revise, we'll take a look at those, and then we'll go back and we'll do our number crunching, and then at the second commission meeting, you'll see those. At the second workshop, you'll see those changes if there are any tonight through this conversation. Okay. I want to pinpoint 230 of the city commission's line. You see an increase there. And then there's a change at 367 other charges. Those other charges is now that we have our video and audio here in the chamber. That was where those funds are being expended at 367. And that will remain a line item unless we decide to scrap all our technology here and go back to just no video and audio at all for our general public outside of this chamber.
So the video, you're saying that included into the 11,000?
That's the monthly fee to our audiovisual entity. Yes.
Okay.
Because
Not monthly.
That's not the monthly, that's...
No, that's a total for the year.
Okay.
Yeah, total for the year. The reason why you have gone from 8833 to 17K on your life insurance, last year we were only carrying one. Now we're carrying more commissioners in the next fiscal year, so that's why you see an increase in the life and health insurance.
We was only carrying one person?
yes,
Total for both life and health insurance, yes, sir. Now you're carrying 3,
about 3, maybe 4.
possible 4.
This includes the buy-it,
Yes,
Yes,
so we're only expecting maybe one buy-it out of the 5?
there's only 3 on the insurance
so
Period.
total, yes, sir.
Yes,
Not
maybe
5.
2 on the buyout.
And 2, yes.
2 on the buy-it
Maybe,
and 3
yes.
on the insurance. Okay.
As far as traveling per diem, we always talk about that during the year and where our budget is. I think significant. I think we've done due diligence there. I didn't see any necessary for changes. Typically, when we have all the conferences and traveling that we have to do, everyone doesn't travel, and that's really been a cost savings to us over the last fiscal year. And so we project not much change there as well, Mayor and Commission.
What I know it's not here, but what would help me if we could have what we actually spent, this actual expenditures at the end of the fiscal year for all of these, but especially from last year. That way I can see whether or not we went over or under, and it kind of make a lot more sense to me. Say if, for instance, we wasn't utilizing a certain line item by 15%, I can look at that and kind of see it, or we was over in one that we may need to increase that line item. I know y'all have the information, but as commissioners, we don't.
Right.
You know, we don't have
Right.
it.
And if we thought that there was a need to make these changes before we came in here, they would have done that. They would have, implemented that. But that's not a problem in our next quarterly report. I don't know if we can have that prepared by the next meeting, but if you want to see those particular areas, we can do that. But we do due diligence in doing that. When we're looking at the budget, we look at what we're spending. Do we go higher than we projected from last year? Do we need to change a line item here for the upcoming year? They're just projections, but we can change, again, what you see here to ensure that we're able to cover it. Now, we do go over in some line items, particularly at times, but sometimes it's maybe by, a couple of $100s. It's not a critical need to make a change here and there. It could have been particularly a reason why, we went over at that time in that particular line item. But if you don't see a lot of changes here, it's because there was not too much overgrowth or expenditure that occurred in your line items. But we can provide you that, Mayor, if you need.
Our books, dues, and subscription is still remain at $10,250. Are we actually spending that amount? I know it's 5 of us, but I'm wondering.
When you look at the subscriptions, the memberships for Florida Legal Cities, Palm Beach Legal Cities, yes, you're expending that amount.
Caucuses.
Yeah. Any additional questions about these line items, Commissioners?
And I know that all of us don't go, like you say, to all the conferences, but $3,500 for conferences for 5 commissioners, that's seem to be low.
Well, it is low, and that's why when we look at some of the other line items that you don't use, if we hit a threshold and we're seeing that that line item has dropped down to less than 25%, we then make an interdepartmental change to the line items to ensure that if another conference is coming up, it's covered. So that money from one line item that hasn't been used, we move it down. And we do that often. We do that very often. But if you want us to divide books, dues, and subscriptions up and put some more in the conference and registration, we can do that. I would say it's not necessary because we sort of keep an eye on what's occurring at a certain rate, and when the director sees that a line item is beyond or below that 25% threshold, we make those interdepartment changes for the line item. But again, if you want to see some money exchanged around here on these line items from 515 to 561, it'll still end up being about the same amount of money you expended out, if not less. We can do that.
Okay. Now the 2220 Florida League of Cities, I see 2221, I know that's retirement at 3%, but this 2% that went from 2, and I know that's across the board, to 4.35, what is that? And how did that occur?
Okay, the city gives the 3% no matter what across the board.
Correct.
But if you contribute, we give you an extra 4.35%.
So we went from 2% to
4.35, it's been like that for years. I'm not sure exactly when it changed, but it's been like that for a while.
okay.
Excuse me, I would like to recognize I'm here. Okay, I know I'm late.
So noted. Let the record reflect that Commissioner Walker came.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Any additional questions, Mayor, Commissioner?
Workman compensation, is that low for us too?
Well, we hope none of y'all get hurt.
Yeah,
coming in this chamber. But yeah, that's low, and that's spread across all departments. By the way, we did see
you took the total amount that
Yeah.
we pay for workman comp and
Yeah.
kind
Divided it.
of average it out between.
Yes, sir,
okay.
all departments.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sam, what's the Tri-City meetings? What meetings?
I think it's one and the same.
It's one and the same, yeah.
It's the Tri-City barbecues.
That's the one we'll host. Normally, we try to host one a year.
Right.
That luncheon,
That's the
that
barbecue,
general
right?
meeting, not the barbecue,
Not the
like
Oh,
the
the
general
Tri-City, that's right,
meeting.
the meeting, that's, okay.
Yeah. Now, going back to the barbecue.
And we'll be
though,
doing both this year. We'll be hosting the Tri-Cities meeting as well on that same day.
I thought we always get reimbursed and we don't normally have to pay out of pocket.
We
now
all get
letting them leave.
reimbursed a percentage back, all three cities. All three cities put in money and they get a percentage back at the end,
Right.
yeah. Hopefully this year we'll get a larger pool back. Typically, that's how it works because we expend the most money because we're the host this year.
What percentage do we get back, you know?
It depends.
It depends.
Depends.
Depends on the amount of money you expended out and all the expenditures that are paid out. Any additional questions? Okay, let's move on to 2010. This is the city manager's budget. Let's start with 130, salary and wages. That's at a projection. Of course, we haven't agreed to a contract yet. Contract will be discussed tomorrow, but that's a projection of the anticipation of what that contract will indicate. Again, that's a projection. If that projection changes after tomorrow evening, the next workshop will represent those changes, okay? Contractual services, I want to jump down to 340. Contractual services, that's not money for the city manager. That's actually our lobbying firm that's under my department for paying them on a yearly basis. I want to clear that up.
Glad to clear that up. That was a question that,
Yeah, that's for contracted services, not services that are going to the city manager, but that's to our lobbying firm that we pay year round.
so
And
those are
those-
two lobbyists that we have up in Tallahassee that go, okay.
Yes.
My only concern with that, I'm not sure the rationale of paying year round when the legislators are not in session, but a part of the year. I don't know, and you may be able to tell me. I know they even have to do some research and legwork, but what are they doing and why we're paying them the same amount when we know they're not there lobbying for us. I know we got to maybe spread out, but $4,000, whatever we're paying them, that's quite a bit. And I think when the public first heard that, had a lot of grasping in here. So
Well, let me say this, in 2 years, you've gotten $13 million.
Yeah,
That's
but
a-
they're
that's
not
an
the only
easy-
person
that's
that help. They're part of the equation.
I understand that, but their messaging continues when all the other messaging stops. When I'm not in Tallahassee, they're there. When the county's not in Tallahassee, they're still there on behalf of the city. And they're not just there for session between January through April. We continue this process with messaging, with communications, with our elected officials in Tallahassee and even in Washington, D.C. if needed, not just those months, but throughout. For example, I've spoken about the 2018-2019 budget with our lobbyists since the end of last session about what we're going to do for 2019. So they're developing.
I'm
all
not
of
saying
our-
they're not doing any work during that time, but all I'm saying is the legislators not in session.
Well, again,
it's a little
but you
less
can't-
work than what
You have to
would be
remember, they're
expected.
not just talking about legislation. They don't just go to Tallahassee during those months. They meet in their districts with the chairman of Appropriations Committee. That could be in Tampa, wherever that appropriations chair resides in his district. They go and meet with him in his office. It's not just in Tallahassee that they travel. They travel multiple places throughout the year, not just to Tallahassee. Beyond that, typical lobbying firms, contracts, you're going to get them for a year. It's very difficult to find any lobbying contract that's 6 months. If you do, not much is going on.
No, if we
'Cause
negotiate a
there's no-
contract, even if it's a yearly contract.
I understand that,
I
but I'm
would
talking about
think that
residual
doing-
return on investment. Now, you can do a 6 months and say, hey, let's do $24,000.
No, I'm not even talking about the 6 months. I'm saying paying less during the time they're not in session. So if they're in sessions, for instance, 6 months of the year, 6 of those other months, if we were giving them, say $4,800, we may be giving them $3,000 or $2,400. You know, we can negotiate that.
Well, you have to remember, you just approved another 2-year contract last year with this firm that takes you to the end of 2019. So you would have to go back and see if they're willing to amend that contract. Right now, that's what represents your current 2-year contract. So that's why you see that here today. So until that contract is amended and they agree to it, it's $48,000. But I can say that money's been well spent because you've gotten $13 to $14 million in the last 2 years. So
What did we get
that's a
last
good
year?
trade-off.
What did we get last year? This last section.
Last year we got $1 million.
Okay. We were extremely lucky the year before. That's the bulk of the money we received. We had a lot of hands in helping to secure that amount of money. I'm hoping we'll be just as successful, but I doubt it we'll ever have that kind of year again.
I have to disagree with you.
Okay.
That's just my projections of where we're going this session. But again, this is a 2-year contract that we've already agreed to based on their services that were rendered. If you want to amend that, you're welcome to do that between now and the end of this budget, cycle, and we'll come back and we'll make changes. We'll take a look at it. We'll have a discussion with them and see what works for less, and see what we can bring back to the commission. Again, this is a workshop. Certainly, welcome to make those recommendations. My traveling per diem has changed. I did go over that. I've traveled a little bit more the last year and a half than usually in my first year. A lot of that was to Tallahassee, of course, working with the different departments up there to ensure that we are successful. And so we wanted to put a little bit more money there to ensure that we don't bust the budget, mid-year or 3 quarters into the fiscal year. As far as traveling per diem is concerned. Do you have more questions about this particular budget? As I said, this is the first workshop. If things change, really with the executive salary, we'll come back and it'll represent what you decide on tomorrow as far as that line item is concerned. I think that really is the major change here. And we'll have some additional discussions about our contractual services as well. And if there's some changes that we can make, we'll certainly represent that at the final budget, before the final budget hearing. 512020, City Clerk. No significant changes here. As you know, there will be a change in the position, and we are projecting what that change will be moving forward in the 2018-2019 year, and that is a salary and wage change. And so we'll have those additional conversations about why you see those numbers there tomorrow night. Again, if those are going to change, this is the first workshop. The next workshop will represent those changes per our discussions tomorrow night. Beyond that, there are no significant changes in this budget. Actually, you're saving a couple of dollars with the change in the position. We do have an election coming up in 2019, and that's typically expended out at about $10,000 for hosting an election.
Now, the city clerk conference and registration, what is that, the 1795? What, that's when they go?
That's
to-
conference registrations. It's when they go to summer, fall conference, any other conferences, locally or statewide or even out of the state. And I project all of that will get used with an interim clerk coming in for the upcoming fiscal year. Any additional questions, Mayor, Commission, on this particular department? And
What consists of the clerk professional services? What's that something? Who's,
That's codifying.
where is he at?
Right here.
Oh, that's professional services. That's codifying things changes that we make. We have to pay for those changes. For as our code of ordinances, we have to pay for those code of ordinances going to Muni Code. We have to actually pay every time you change an ordinance, revise an ordinance, make a new ordinance. It has to go into Muni Code. We have to pay for those changes to advertise them there. And sometimes when we have a lot of ordinance changes, I think over this last year, we actually expended, quite a lot of dollars out for changes. They were needed, but that's what happens when you make code of ordinance changes and it has to go into Muni Code. You have to pay for those changes.
I know one time the city clerk said it's very expensive. That
Yeah.
professional services.
And that's, well, I'm not going to say that either. Yeah.
And mainly the codes.
310, Commissioner Walker. 310. When we make ordinance changes or revise, et cetera, and once you do the second reading on something like that, it goes into Muni Code, and we have to make those changes. Any additional questions, Mayor, Commission? Finance General Accounting. Line item 113110120 you're going from 142 to 155. One major reason is for that is we've actually hired additional staff in finance. Now, we also are projecting as one of the staff wraps up their undergrad degree that their salary amounts for change as well. But you have additional staff in this department, which was very well needed to ensure that our audits are done appropriately and we have just more coverage in that department for our financial operations. So we picked up additional staff in this department, and that's what the changes are here, mostly for this department for 2018, 2019. Of course, we took on the individual a couple of months ago, but now we're projecting what a full fiscal year will look like. Yes, Commissioner Mervin.
4 people. Okay.
Okay, if we have increased staff in this department, why is the line item for life and health insurance the same?
They're currently part-time, not full-time.
And
They
I
don't get
I
those
take the health
benefits.
insurance.
And she doesn't, and the director doesn't take the health insurance. The director doesn't take the health insurance, and the additional staff that we've hired, they're part-time, and part-time staff don't get those benefits. So that's why you don't see an increase.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And we project our accounting and auditing to go down by 7,000?
The amount has been spread across different departments. The amount for the auditing
Right.
has been spread across different departments. So some of it is in Public Works, some of it's in the Marina Fund, and then the Cemetery Fund.
Yeah. We try to share
You
those
see,
costs when
right.
it's
Mhm.
a service being rendered across all departments. We try to share that cost, especially when it comes to auditing.
But you did it last year, right? I
You
mean,
mean
that's-
spread the cost?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
But I'm just saying, in this particular department, the
Yeah.
cost spread went down
Down.
by 7,000.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. Which is good for the city of Pahokee across the board.
And travel and per diem. That's for the finance person, right?
Well, they're going to more conferences. I express in my annual reviews with directors that we do our best to keep our staff on the cutting edge. as far as training, certifications, best practice models. And so that requires them to get out of the office, spend time with other professionals in their field of industry to learn those best practice models. You're bringing on part-time staff that need some type of additional certification and training. Of course, we have Ms. Reyes there who is wrapping up her undergrad degree. She certainly is going to need some additional municipal finance training and certification, and so that's what that's there for.
So that would also be why the fuel would go up.
That would be why the fuel is there as well, because we also look for in-state, in-county, sometimes in-town workshops, two-day conferences, etc. For example, we just sent our code enforcement part-timer to a conference. I think it was about 3 or 4 days last week. It was in Fort Lauderdale. So we'll be looking to do more of that in this department as well. And it only helps ensuring that we have the best qualified staff in that department.
How did the bank charges fee go up 300% from 500 to 1,500?
We added some extra security.
Huh?
We added some extra security on our banking side.
Yeah.
And we're able to do deposits now inside City Hall with checks.
And also, we've taken on the ability to accept debit and credit cards in City Hall. We didn't have that before. So now, when someone comes in to pay a bill or pay some type of service, they no longer have to come in with a wad of cash or a money order for a certain amount. Well, they do have to come in with a money order if it's over a certain amount. But it allows us now to say, hey, we no longer take $1,500 in cash. That limits our risk of a lot of money being in front of us in that cage, in that front office at one time. So about allowing us to take on this extra service of debit and credit card, we can have a safer, more seamless approach for our residents to pay bills. But that comes with a cost. You have to pay those service fees to the bank on a monthly basis.
I mean, it's not an exorbitant amount, but I'm just wondering what is uniforms for the. I know we got our city shirts. If that's what it is. Yeah,
that's what it is. Typically, we don't even use that line item. It's there if we need it. We just took on a new staff. It wasn't $350, but it's a line item in every department. Typically, we don't use it. I think Public Works probably uses it more than anybody because their uniforms outside the type of working environment they're in, they use it more often than other departments. My only complaint about this line item is I don't have the best shirts that I select. I need to get other shirts for the city, but you probably won't see uses of this line item at all this year. Maybe. Any additional questions about the Finance Department? Mayor, Commissioner. Human Resources. Change there is salary. That's a projection. Maybe less than that, but that's just a projection. There's really not a whole lot of changes here in this department because it's a one FTE department, one full-time employee there. So there's not many changes in this department this year.
Where we put in for, and I can see where when it's just one staff, where there's a projection of a salary increase, but where are you projecting any type of raises for staff?
Yeah, that's in every department you went over. And as we get into the secondary part of this budget, Public Works, Parks and Recreation, you'll see those changes in the salary and wage columns once we get there. They're not in this budget because we're not going through all those departments, but once you look at each department, you'll see a 2% over the cross of all departments, an increase, or projection of an increase. Of course, that's based on annual evaluation. That's based on the recommendation from that director to that department. I don't go into a department and say, we're going to give raises. I wait for directors to do their annual assessments and provide me the guidance on who gets an increase based on performance. It's not a blanket increase in any department. It's based on performance. But in addition to that, we do look at annual compensation, and we try to make changes just even beyond the annual evaluation just because of cost of living, wage increase, et cetera. We still look at it and we still make those recommendations to each department to provide raises beyond just the annual review. So I want to clear that up. It's not just annual review,
Okay,
but
that was going to be my
that
next
plays a part in
question,
it.
because
Right.
I really prefer
Yeah.
you having a cost of living increase across the board, whether it's 1% or 1.5%.
Right.
At least those individuals
Yes,
know
they
that they
need
will
it.
be receiving
Correct.
something.
Correct. Correct.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because I had that time to ask.
Yeah. Any additional questions with human resources, Mayor, Commission?
How many is in that department?
Just one.
So her life and health insurance is that high for one individual?
Yes.
Yes.
13,000?
Yes.
That's on average per person that we pay, 13,000?
Which one? Which were you? Human
Yes,
resources?
it's 4.
No, you're in the wrong department. It says
Okay.
13 on your side?
You're human resources.
Yeah. Okay, all right.
Okay,
Yeah.
human resource,
We're
yeah.
human resources.
It's 4. 4 to 3.
Yeah.
We put numbers on the pages. Sorry. That's about average, Mayor. Yes.
Gotcha.
Okay. All right. IT, this is our IT professional that ensures that we have an operating system, a secure server of our emails and communications here in the city of Pahokee. I'll be having a discussion with this particular entity about next year's budget as far as reduction in services. And based on that conversation between now and the next workshop, we'll have a number that we can all agree on as far as his services to the city of Pahokee. Based on my assessment of the services that we get on a weekly basis, his ability to remote into our server to fix problems, I made that recommendation to the finance department, but we haven't had this conversation with our IT entity yet. When we do, we'll come back with a number that we both can agree on at the next workshop. Again, this is the contracted services. It's a no health, life, any of that, just a contract for services. Any additional questions there, Mayor? Commission?
What was the professional services for again?
This is IT, all our IT.
I know, I'm looking, I'm trying to look at, find something.
It's just professional services for IT.
Okay, I'll go back to that, go ahead.
Okay.
I have a question.
All right. 514000 is our city attorney, legal counsel. There's a recommendation there for an increase. We have seen over the last 9 months, really, more lawsuits in the city. We still are dealing with 2 currently. That takes our city attorney outside of his normal service delivery to the city of Pahokee, where he has to go to court beyond what he is contracted to do with the city of Pahokee. And so that's why you see an increase there. Is there a conversation that you want to see less or more? We'll certainly entertain that at this time, and those changes will represent on the next workshop, Mayor, Commission. Is
Did
this some?
he propose the change of the increase, or you as a?
We had a discussion about it. He never put a actual dollar amount into it. We just discussed about what his workload would look like in 2018, 2019. This could be less if you chose to make a change right now, Commission. I know previously that we stuck to 85 because we thought that was a standard for his services twice a month. But again, he's going into other areas now that will have us in court on a couple of lawsuits, as you already
Not
know.
only that, I mean, we got a lot of additional grants, you know, last
Yeah.
year or so,
Yeah,
so.
we
this
pulled
is
that in
big.
pretty hard this year, so, again, you can, up or down, you can make changes or recommendations here tonight. You don't have to do them tonight, we can come back and make them at the next workshop. It's your pleasure.
Are you comfortable with that?
I'm comfortable with it. I can entertain making a change to it. We have three legal lawsuits that we're working with. We've done a lot of work with all of the projects that we have now. And before those projects come online, the city attorney has to do an extreme amount of reading, research to ensure those contracts that you approve are correct and it represents what we need to do. And we brought 4 major projects online. We got 2 more to do. And so every contract that you approve, he must reread, and approve before it comes back to the commission. And we've done a lot of that in this past fiscal year. Will we have a lot of success next year with contracts coming in from state funds, maybe federal funds? That's a projection. I think we will. Well, as the mayor indicated, he's not sure we'll be that successful. But this represents what he's done and what he will be doing for us in a legal perspective in court. And so I think it's fair. Yes, ma'am, I'm comfortable with it. But again, it's your pleasure if you want to reduce it. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Any additional questions, Mayor, Commission? Comprehensive planning, that is 51,000, 5,000.
You still didn't get it right. 5,100, 5,000?
51,000. Actually, 515. We're gonna renumber these departments. We're gonna get different numbers for these departments, like 1.
Just put say 515,000.
That's what it is.
Oh, okay.
I don't see that.
Is that
Huh?
just
That's-
50,000?
Must be looking at something.
Right here. Right up
Oh, okay, the department
Yeah,
number.
department
Yeah,
number.
okay, yeah,
Not the-
yeah,
I was looking at the actual.
Right.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna change these department numbers. Anyway, these are contracted services with CAP government. They do all of our building and inspections for as work is concerned, and et cetera, zoning, et cetera. So that's a contracted service that we have with CAP government. That's through, again, that's building, planning, and zoning. And that rate hasn't changed over the last 3 years, and we don't anticipate it to change in 2018, 2019. Mayor, any additional questions here on CAP government, commission? No additional, Mayor? Okay. Protected inspections, building, planning, and zoning, next page. The most significant change here, of course, is salaries. There's a significant change here because we have hired 2 code enforcement officers now in that department. One even works on the weekends. And so that is the major change that you see here in this department.
So that includes the 2 code enforcers, and now we're gonna have how many building and planning? It'll be 1 now, it'll be just Mrs. Pilar.
Well, we want, but we're hiring someone, yes.
So that'd be
We're advertising
2
for
code
that.
enforcers and 2 in your building, planning, and zoning. That'll be that. So it's 4 people.
Right. And then we get some shared money as well from CDBG. I don't think that's represented in here, right?
Yes.
It
Yes
is,
and no.
somewhat, yeah. But
So you
major
said
changes,
what?
yes, ma'am.
Right.
It's a grant.
Oh, it's a grant that we get yearly to support
Right.
code
I
enforcement.
understand somewhat. Explain what.
It's there. It actually covers one of the salaries, so we don't cover the full amount that you see in front of you. Some of it is covered by a grant
Oh,
that we receive.
I was worried that, but I didn't know what this Explain.
In 2016-17, we had more code enforcement staff?
Yes, sir. Actually, those two were full-time. And then when that individual left the city, we went to one full-time code enforcement officer. But now we're bringing back a second one, and that person's not full-time. They're actually part-time. So you don't see the full amount back there from 2016, 2017. So they're working 4 days a week versus a full week. And there's no, again, no benefits there for that part-time position. Maybe one day we will go back to having two full-time code enforcement officers. I don't see a need for it right now. I think one full-timer and one part-timer is sufficient for the city of Pahokee. Maybe in the future we'll go back to two full-time code enforcement officers.
I know this is a budget and we can discuss it because we're dealing with code. Did we address that issue with Mrs. I can't even think of her name now. I think you've seen that.
Can you ask me
The one
afterwards?
that come here all the time, Mary Dobro, about those various tractor trailers.
The city attorney is drafting a new ordinance now.
So we don't have nothing to address that currently?
Not to that severity. We do, but it doesn't have everything in it that we need to address it immediately. But the attorney is drafting something that I think you'll be pleased with once we can get it to the table and agreed upon. Yeah. I can talk offline about it because there's some other things that we need to, develop before we pass an ordinance of that type. But
Are we able to give them any type of forewarning?
Yeah, all of that will be
vehicles.
It'll be in there. Yes. It won't be immediate. It won't be tomorrow. It won't be, you have 2 days or even a month. It'll be some time in there that you can that they can have time to adjust. And so we're trying to build the right strategic plan that will help everyone out in the long run. So no, it won't be immediate. So we're taking our time with it, but there's nothing there, Mayor, right now immediately that can move those trucks permanently right now. That's why we're drafting a new ordinance. We're looking at some other cities and how their
I
ordinance
just
is
want him to
done.
be prepared to find some place.
Right.
And at some point, he's going to.
And that's what we're doing. We're trying to figure out, where's a piece of property to do that on. South Bay just went through this, but we'll talk about it offline.
Okay.
Yeah.
City Clerk, let the record reflect that Commissioner Andrew has arrived at the meeting workshop.
Because he, from professional fees up in here.
Okay, any additional questions here? Building, planning, and zoning with the Division of Code Enforcement. All right. Next page, Community Economic Development Department. Again, these are projections for the changes that we're making in community economic development.
How many staff in there?
There's 2 staff in there, but we're projecting we're gonna have to add an administrative assistant, but we're not sure yet. And that's really to address more of the heavy caseload that we're taking into what we expect, what we can do with grant development in 2018, 2019. We're projecting maybe a part-time person will come aboard to that department as well. Again, that's just a projection. Someone that can come in and do some administrative paperwork, 2 to 3 days a week.
What's professional fees?
That used to be where the grant writer was
Okay,
located,
okay.
and then we,
That's that.
Then we combine it to the
Yes.
top, yeah.
I have a question in general.
Mayor, any additional questions here with this particular department? Commission? Again, I want to remind the mayor and commission that this is a draft budget. We may go back ourselves and look at some projections that will change based on our revenue expectations over the 2018-2019 fiscal year, and some of these numbers may adjust as well that you are agreeable with tonight. They may change at the next and final workshop. So just be cautious of that. And in fact, when we do get the secondary budget worksheet, if there are changes here that we made tonight, we'll highlight those in your next correspondence. As far as giving you this budget, we'll highlight and show you those changes for you. Any additional questions, Commission? Mayor? All right. Non-departmental. There's a projection increase in electrical services across the board here in the city of Pahokee. That is line 431.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. Again, that's a projection. If we plan to bring the gymnasium back online, that is a utility cost that will be a burden to the city to take care of on a monthly basis. Of course, that's not all of it, but there's been some increases, as you know, since we've increased our FP&L 30-year contract. But if we bring on the gym again, that'll be for a rate cost that will certainly increase, you know, across the board. But again, that $15,000 is not for the gymnasium per month by itself. That's an across the board assessment of all our utility responsibilities in the city of Pahokee. Again, that's a projection. I want to go to 452, insurance.
Yes, that's all.
I'm still holding back on announcing what our new rates will be for our liability. Again, we're looking at a significant savings here in the city of Pahokee, but I want to ensure that I select the right plan for the city of Pahokee as it pertains to liability insurance for all of the city of Pahokee. And so I want to be cautious about that, but it is a good savings that we'll be receiving. But I just haven't selected the correct plan and company that will carry us for the 2018-2019 fiscal year. So that's why you see a reduction there across the board. These are shared services through all the departments for the city of Pahokee.
Sorry, is property insurance you're talking about?
Property liability, yes.
Okay.
I do have a question going back.
It's going to be all three of those, by the way.
I do have a question going back to 431. I see the adopted budget for 2016, 2017. And the adopted line versus proposed line for both the same year, a major hike.
We were sort of under budgeted for this year.
Yeah,
So
we've already gone over that amount.
Yes. We had to-
That's why you see 15K there, significantly.
this
Was
year-
that an electric service under budget? Was that an oversight, a typo?
Could have been a typo or an oversight, but we had to this year transfer the money into the line item in order not to go into the negative. So that's what we had to do.
Again, that's a projection.
In the 4th of July celebration, we're going from 4,000 to 7,000, so almost double.
I kind of made an executive decision because we received less donations this year. So we had to cover
Received what?
less donations.
Less donations this year.
So we had to cover a little bit more.
All right. Again, that's a projection. We may have to cover a little bit more in 2018,
So
2019.
even if we receive donation, that don't show reflect an entire budget.
No.
If
because-
fireworks cost 10,000 and our contribution directly was 5,000, we're only gonna show 5,000? You got to show that extra 5,000 that it was received.
Correct.
It should be part of that. I should be able to look at this and tell how much firework cost, whether we paid it directly or indirectly through a donation.
Well, that's why we can put that in a quarterly report, but in your budget workshop, we don't bring all that information here.
I thought that's one.
No, we've never done that. You've never seen that in a budget discussion. This is a budget workshop, so we don't bring all that information on what we're expending out now. But again, that information could be brought here. But as she said, the reason why you see $7,000 there, because we got less donations this year. We're projecting that may happen again. It may not. Just like everyone up here may not travel to all the conferences, yet we projected $20,000 in conference costs. You may only spend $15,000. So it's just a projection of what we think we would have to pay out in the 2018-2019 fiscal year. If it's less than that, then the 2019-2020 budget, you will actually see a savings going into that fiscal year. This year, it was different. We got less in contributions. So sitting here today in a budget workshop, we're projecting maybe we'll get less next year. So let's ensure we can cover the amount in the budget for the 2018-2019 fiscal year. Just a projection. But if it changes, you'll see that in the 2019-2020 budget where we save because we got more donations in from our sponsors. This year we didn't. We got a little less.
You know, numbers scare me anyway.
Yeah, that's why I leave it up to her.
Math, I feel like I got dyscalculia. But if I guess I just need you to help me understand. Case in point, we got $10,000 this year for just scenario for 4th of July celebration. And of that $10,000, 6 of it came from donors. That you're saying as a practice, you would not include that?
In previous years, what they did was when they received the donation, they took the money back from the donation. So it was like an in and out. So they would expense it from the revenue account. We are trying to change it, but that's how they practiced it before. So when the accountants now, when they, how you said, so that you can understand, I'm sorry. So when they actually pay the invoice, instead of them using the expenditure account, they're using the revenue account. So that's why it will only show what we're expensing and not what the donations is for the account.
So the money would be deposited into, I guess, so I can understand, in a general account?
Yes.
And instead of expending it from the line item?
Here, it'll come right back from where they put the donation.
Okay.
So that's why you don't see it as being expensed.
Okay. So if I was a donor, just say I gave the $6,000 to go toward the $4,000 that the city has budgeted, which would make the sum total $10,000. You're not putting it into the line item. You're just putting it into the general fund.
Yes, one revenue account. Like
Right.
we would put the money into 3,100 because it was donations, and then when we get the invoice, they would take the money from 3,100 plus the 546.
And is that a practice you're going to
That was-
continue?
No, we're trying to get away from it, but it was previously practiced, so that's what they've been doing.
Yes, because we'll never know if that money really went towards what it was donated for.
Oh, I can give you backup. It goes to what it's donated for.
Yeah, but I mean, just for clarity, for if we're just sitting here, you have the commission sitting here. At the end of the day, you know, we can listen to this,
Right.
but we just don't know.
You want to see the
I
actual
understand.
number.
I understand you can give me the proof,
Right.
but why is it you just can't have it? I think it'd just be much easier if we
Because
just
this is
had it on-
this is a workshop about our 2018-2019 budget.
No. I just assumed that in a
It's not a
workshop,
report
that's
on
when
our
we get
current
a lot
fiscal.
of the information. Because in a workshop,
Right.
I would think that a lot of things are explained. That's why it's a workshop.
Right.
So
Right.
that's why I would feel more comfortable if it was where we can actually see the donation. We know that, you know, we just know the numbers are there. I just think that's just a lot more clarity.
But we don't
I think
really
it's a
know
lot
how
of
much.
clouds when you do it, when they do it like that. If
Right.
that's the case,
So we're
I
trying to
think
come away
yeah,
from
we
that.
need to change it.
Yeah,
like,
we're trying
as
to come
soon as
away from it,
possible.
but we don't really know the amount they're going to donate. But in previous years, like I said, they've been using the revenue account for in and out. So we're getting away from that. We've changed a lot of the accounts so that you can see the actual expenditure. But this is one of the accounts that we have not yet gotten to. So we're getting to it.
Okay.
And that's fair, because you in one respect, you don't know on the front end
Right.
what you're going to get back from, what you're going to get from your donors.
Right.
But once you, I guess, I don't know.
My thing is,
I'll
once
shut up
we
about
get it,
that.
I just would like to know if it's being used for that. I think it's just good for us to know if it was really in any type of.
Well, I'll be
workshop,
honest.
any
Well,
type of
I'll make the
budgeting,
conversation
if
real
it's used
short.
for that.
Fireworks, costs more than $10,000.
No, I know that.
So
I
we
know
use
that.
all of that.
Right. I understand, but you have some situations, some scenarios where it's not always,
Not in this
like-
city. That's not happening in this city.
It's used.
It's used
You
fully.
won't even see it here. I would have to actually pull the information.
I just think it's best that we see it. I think it's best that it be cleared up, and if that can be changed, I think we should change it and change that practice.
No problem.
All right, thanks. Mayor, any additional questions here at non-departmental?
No, just
All
got
right.
some general questions.
Okay. This is really about 65% of your budget that you've just went over. Our numbers don't change a lot. We've had an opportunity over the last 3 years to balance the books, operate in the black, pay all of our bills on time, not take on any debt, even though I'm trying to put you in some debt for 2018, 2019. We project, fiscally that the state's tightening their belts, and that means the county's going to tighten their belts. We can't project how ad valorem and our property tax, we don't control that conversation in Tallahassee. We try to as far as home rule is concerned. But there's always a legislative policy out there that can affect our budget in the 2018-2019 year or beyond. And the Finance Department works hard to assure this city that there's a balanced budget to present to this commission. In addition to that, we try to be very prudent in our day-to-day practices. It's been 3.5 years since I've been here, and I think this is the best, day-to-day operations that we've had in quite some time. That doesn't mean we haven't had it before, but we put a lot of practices in place to ensure, one, that we have transparency, two, that there's a reduced risk, and three, that the services that we provide to the city of Pahokee are the best for the dollars that we were expending. And so that's why we have a 3-tier approval process in City Hall. I just can't say yes to spending. It comes after someone else has said yes before it gets to my desk. And that ensures that we're getting the best services to our residents, be it Parks and Recreation, purchasing equipment, buying a pencil. We try to be very prudent in the best cost savings to the city of Pahokee. And this budget will represent that. The last budget did. But again, we have a couple of things that we're working on as far as in the insurance area that I think you'll be pleased with for 2018, 2019. Again, I'm not ready to announce what those are yet. There are some significant cost savings in there for 2018, 2019 that you will be pleased with. And so we look forward to presenting that to the commission as well. Again, this is a working budget. We got three more major departments to discuss. If there are changes that you want to see between now and before we get to our final hearing in September, please let us know that. But we have another workshop to discuss the remaining departments. Mr. Commissioner Everett came in late. I think we need to sit down with him and go through the budget on his time between now and the next commission meeting so he can get comfortable with what we reviewed tonight so we can move forward in the next workshop. Are there any additional questions? Yes, ma'am.
By the next workshop, we talked about the actual expenditures that we can actually see.
Sure.
That would be helpful to me.
Sure.
That I can
We'll have that.
look at that.
We'll bring it.
Also, I need to see clearly or have some type of addendum about the proposed increases for staff. I know it's kind of, to me, it's still a little fuzzy because you're saying that everybody's not going to get an increase based on performance. I think we're saying that even with that, we want a minimum increase this year, whether it's 1%, 2%, whatever, that everybody, cost of living raise, everybody shouldn't be working at the same salary each year if we can increase it by some.
So you're saying an increase for everyone, no matter what?
Yeah, I would like to see 2-tier increase. One would be a cost of living increase, whatever you all can budget for that, whatever percentage. And then the second increase would be based on performance. so that no one would go away this year with not having any type of increase. I think if they're working here, they're doing the minimum to keep their job. So if they're doing that, we're not saying we were rewarding less performance, but we do want to
Cost of living.
cost of living. So
Okay.
I like to see kind of
We
both
can do
of
that.
just
No, we can do that.
projection wise.
We can do that, not a problem.
Secondly, and I know you know I have a little problem with this, the end of the year budget, the end of the year bonuses, we need to know that that's budgeted. And you may not be able to give it, but you can put it in there, and we know that this would be the maximum per employee that the employees will be receiving.
So would you rather trade off bonuses versus
not
cost of
saying
living?
that.
I'm just saying.
I don't know what you did last year. Did you do a cost of living, or did you do a bonus, or did you do both? Because
We didn't do both.
okay, see, I wasn't aware of that.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
No, I'm saying now that we're having a conversation,
Right.
we'll take a look at what's more effective, what's more
I think
intensive.
sometimes you can do both if you can do it. Maybe
Right.
you can't, but if you're
Alright.
planning on doing both,
We'll look at that. Yeah,
it should
sure.
be a surprise to the commission that, employees got bonuses. Because we can look at it during a budget hearing, and somebody may think now, because I'm talking about bonuses, I may not want a bonus. I may want more than what you're projecting, and we
Right.
may have a way of finding the money to do that.
Right.
But if I knew what you was giving, I can be part of that conversation.
Gotcha.
I think during the budget workshop, we should.
All right.
And then lastly, we got away from the last 2 years of approving the holidays, because sometimes they fluctuate and they change.
That'll be presented at the
During
next-
budget workshop.
that'll be at the next
We
workshop.
need to know exactly what holidays and how much time staff will be
Yeah.
receiving.
We'll make sure it's on a part of it.
Mr. Mayor, if I'm in order, I do want to take this moment to apologize to you and my fellow colleagues for my tardiness, but I will say life does happen, and I don't want to go further into the whys, but I do want to offer my apologies, but I did want to make this a priority in being here because I do have just a few questions. Nothing long, but
Commissioner Everett, what we'll do is if it pleases you, you got some time between now and the next workshop, bring it to the office and we'll go over this part of the budget and get you comfortable with where we are.
Okay. One quick question I do want to ask with regards, and not belaboring the time, under the financial and general accounting, how many staff is?
It's 4.
4?
Yeah, we increased. That's why you see an increase there.
Okay. And also fuel costs. I noticed that it went up from $200 to $1,500.
As previously discussed, we're sending more staff to conferences. Some of those staff are in county, in state, but there are more conferences that I want to get my staff to for certifications, training, best practice models, et cetera. And I'm going to send more staff out of the office to get more experience.
If I could, while we're talking about the conferences, do all the department heads attend conferences for professional development?
Yes, they do.
Every one of them?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, and that includes also webinars. And we've gotten sort of into webinars a little bit. Even our city clerk has, and it's been very wonderful at doing it. But what it does is sometimes it reduces the cost of being out of the office, paying for the gas, paying for the hotel. But, for example, Public Works. There's a lot of training and best practice models that they have to do, believe it or not, with equipment, driving, et cetera. The more webinars that my Public Works staff takes, the more reductions that we can see in our insurance costs because they now have it filed a way that they've been certified in that particular area of operation, via it with a truck, a vehicle, or a handheld tool. So, yes, all of them are getting training.
Now, the twofold question is how often, I'm just trying to figure out, as far as an department head, do they have a minimum of, say,
In
two
their-
off-site
In
training?
their annual evaluation, I make at least one conference or certification, a necessity for the upcoming year. And so at minimum, they have to go to one conference or one certification workshop for their professional development. At least one. Sometimes it's more than one if it's needed, and sometimes it is, but I limit or I make a minimum you have to attend a conference or certification workshop in your profession at least once a year.
And they get the choice of choosing that or kind of?
They do, but they try to, when they do, they try to select the one that can best increase their professional skill set. I don't dictate where they go. I kind of already know. Like, I know what conferences a financial director needs. I know the conferences that a human resources director need. I know the conferences that a city clerk needs. When we drill down to some of those direct staff or even an assistant, it's kind of touch and go, but a lot of those things are, deal with leadership, professional development, managing staff, et cetera, outside of their special skill sets that they have.
Okay, I'm sorry, Commissioner Everett.
Oh, no, sir. I want to ask this question to you, Mr. Mayor, because of your tenure. Has the city done a salary study? Because I know we're talking about bonuses and just really, possibly looking at a salary study to make sure that we're paying all of our staff commensurate to the job. I guess, with me being an educator, when we start talking about performance, it rubs me the wrong way because it can be kind of subjective as opposed to maybe a cost of living or just going to a step increase.
Commissioner Everett, actually, that's something we've talked about, in detail over the last couple of weeks as we usually get to those conversations when we get to the budget workshop time of year. We've actually had those conversations already in the financial department, and that's something we're looking at. Based on the annual budget that we have, we are not projecting, but we're looking at, what are those best practice compensation packages that you see in typical other cities. And so we are comparing that based on our budget, of course. We don't have a $10 million budget, so typically if we don't, then, most likely our salary in some of these areas won't represent a city that has a $50 million budget. Just can't. But to your question, that's something that we were just mentioning actually last week, that we needed to do a comparable salary, come up with a pay chart per position, per FTE that makes sense for the city of Pahokee based on its budget.
Before the league could give you
all
most,
that
if not all of that information,
Yeah.
they
have it already.
We report
Yeah,
that.
they even have it for city
And I
managers and all
understand,
that.
is it in, what I'm saying is, not the averages and all of that, but really just looking at us as a city and doing a study to say, hey, this is what you all can, a range, a salary range for the man that works in the Public Works Department.
Commissioner Everett, we're actually developing that.
Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
sir.
Yeah. All right.
I actually have one, but it's not the one that I think that the Director of Finance wants to follow. So she's developing one, the actual minimum, maximum salary per position.
So it's not just conversation.
No.
You all are developing.
Yes.
So is it being developed in-house?
Well,
or are you getting?
Well, no. She's looking at other cities, looking at other cities in each department and how they develop their particular positions for each compensation package for each department, from director on down to direct staff. And then we'll go back and then we develop our actual minimum, maximum based on our budget.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I guess I was just combing through it and I looked at one particular department. I'm not going to call it out, but I just kind of would like to know what are the do we have a set range for our directors?
Which department are you looking at?
A set human resource. Because when I think about human resource, I think that's one of your leading directors. And
She's not a director.
Well, what is she?
She's a manager.
Manager.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But that can be an issue of semantics.
But to your
too.
question, we're doing that.
Because wording,
Exactly.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Manager, director are two different things in the city of Pahokee.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's understood. But it's only one person in that particular office.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Correct.
But and I know we have another budget meeting. I will put this out here. I understand manager and director are different, but it also, in my opinion, can be an issue of semantics, especially when you start looking at what that person has to do. When it may come up with, investigations, handling employees, making sure that there's best employment practices, that there's a safe, friendly working environment. You know, I just kind of was taken aback to look at where that salary, you know, was in relationship to having a background academically in human resource. And you know, I just was kind of, that did kind of stick out to me like a sore thumb.
All right.
A question. Does she have to be certified?
Who? Are we talking about somebody specific?
Human
Resource.
resource.
Yes.
Human resource.
Oh, yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Does she have it?
Yes. And
She
increasing.
does?
And she's also increasing certifications.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
What
she's
about the
certified in HR?
Yes.
Oh.
What about
There are
the,
different levels of HR. There's, you know, general HR manager, and then there's that senior SHCRM certification that they have
So
to obtain
she-
as well.
See,
And
that's
she's not
what-
there yet.
Okay, what about the financial?
No, I don't have to be certified, but I am working towards my certification. So no, I'm not certified.
She doesn't.
I don't have a CPA, no.
Okay.
But again, I think that
We should
study,
be, we should know that.
Yeah.
You know, just be aware of that when we are budget, you know, the budget certified and so forth. What you,
I'm not sure.
No, this is
Does everyone have a
nothing-
CPA?
I see your demeanor for that. I see your demeanor for that. But I just want to know the information.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
All right. Anything additional, Mayor, Commission?
any additional questions, Commission?
All
When will
right.
we have our next meeting, our next budget?
August 13th.
Our next
August
workshop?
13th is your final workshop.
What day is that?
August what?
I looked at it, though. I hope it's a day.
Just
that
before we go to
I-
FLC.
And I think Commissioner Walker asked
Yeah,
that
that's
question. I think that was a very
I don't have it on there.
legit
think it's
question to
August 13th.
ask, so.
What is
Yeah,
that?
it's August 13th.
yeah, I don't see there's
Okay.
nothing
I think
wrong
so.
with that
Monday,
question.
Yeah.
Monday, August 15th.
What you answer me?
All right.
And
I
what's
said
your,
when you-
what's your
I know
last
I
name,
said that
ma'am?
question you
Francis.
asked
Miss
me.
Francis.
Yes.
That's a normal question to
I
ask.
do have one other thing, other charges. Is there a way that can, you know, even if you say miscellaneous other charges, is there a way that it can be parenthetically stated, for example, what those other charges could
No.
be?
That varies.
It'd kind of be kind of hard because it depends. Like for the city clerk's department, it's for advertising. She uses it for advertising.
But what I'm saying, even if you do other charges, because you know, with my limited experience with budgeting, sometimes you could put in parentheses, for example, like you just stated, advertising, different things. So I guess I was told from a financial standpoint when doing church budget that it's not always best practice to just say miscellaneous, because you can lump anything
In the miscellaneous.
under miscellaneous and not give a name to it, but somewhat attaching a name to it, or in a category, just like you said, advertising, because advertising can be as much as a flyer or a TV ad or what have you, but some type of name. Because I just noticed under each department, you did have, you know, other charges, but if we could maybe put a label to it.
Details,
I
details,
could try.
itemized,
Okay.
itemized. That's what I was saying in the beginning. I think those are the things I thought when you're in a workshop, those are the things I thought we go over, the details.
Well, this is the details, actually.
Well,
If
I
you
think the
wanna-
details
you wanna-
need to be a little
you-
more-
you wanna-
need to be a
you
little
want
more,
current budget that
detail.
we're expending from, that's a different conversation. This is your 2018, 2019 budget. But if you want a different conversation about what you're expending currently, that's a financial
So
report.
what is it called when you ask, when you want the details? What, is that a training?
That's
Is that
giving you a financial report. But we can bring it, like I said, we can bring it here, it's not a problem.
It's more like schedules, huh?
Yeah.
Budget to actual,
Yeah.
yes, but I think you're asking for like a schedule at every, thing that we spend on, like in
Yeah.
other charges.
We bring that here, that's about this thick.
But
But I
I
mean,
think,
it's
Try to
nothing.
summarize
but I
it.
think, Mr. Mayor, I think, and Ms. Hill, I think what would help moving forward, you know, in conversations, or requests that the mayor has made, I guess, in moving forward in the new budget year, maybe we can get those, you know, quarterly reports or what have you,
Right.
that we can look
Right.
at, peruse, and see, because in a budget, workshop, you know, I understand that there may be some information that may be too meaty to discuss. But I think over the course of a fiscal year, if we could, you know, get quarterly reports or what have you to see, you know, I guess that would help us, help get whatever questions that we have. Because I've had even constituents call about receiving those types of reports on a quarterly, if not a monthly, you know, basis. Because I've received
I
those
remember we used to get
calls
those
directly.
reports. We once got those reports.
But is it the report that we gave you the last time, or is
No,
it something
I'm
more
saying when I
detailed,
first,
the budget
when I was
to
when I first got in the city, we was with the, last city manager, we got very detailed reports.
Yeah, I
We've
can
gotten
give you
detailed
the-
reports
If you
before.
want line item by line item, I can give you line item by line item.
Just know I don't have the 5 hours
It's not-
to
it's
do that
not-
line by line.
That don't mean you
I can
have to
give you
go
line item by
over
line.
Yeah,
each
but I
line
think
when we
it's
have
still-
a budget workshop or
That's-
whatever, but we need,
That's
We
not a
need
problem.
that.
That's
Yeah.
not a
we
problem.
should be able to look at it
Yeah.
and we
That's
have
all I'm
questions
saying,
and later
just-
come and say,
Right.
you know, I need clarification for that.
It's not a problem. We've been in the blight for 3 years, so whatever you want, do at your pleasure.
Okay.
Anything else, Mayor, Commissioner?
In addition, question, Commissioner. Hearing none, we should adjourn the meeting. I'm surprised no one was here. Did we